Thank you, Grant. And good morning, everyone. It's certainly a pleasure to join you today and to talk about one of my favorite subjects, the global supply chain for cotton. My remarks this morning are really intended to give everyone an overview of the global supply chain for cotton. And I want to also make you aware of several current topics and issues of interest as we deal with cotton in this global supply chain. So the first thing we need to talk about is the global supply chain for cotton begins at the farm. And as you heard from all our friends at the Cotton Board, harvest is in full swing. So that's where we are now. And most of you are aware that the cotton that's being harvested is now getting ready to come to the market. And when we look at the latest USDA forecasts for cotton production worldwide, we see that the world supply chain of cotton is expected to be 116.6 million bales this marketing year. And this is led by China, forecast at 28.2 million bales, India at 24 million bales, Brazil at 16.8 million bales, followed by the United States at 14.2 million bales, Pakistan at 5.7 million bales, and Australia at 5 million bales. What's interesting to note is that while there are many countries in the world, of course, that produce cotton, these 6 countries this year will account for 80% of the world's production of cotton. So this is where the supply chain begins, and most of the world's cotton, again, coming from these 6 producing countries. The cotton coming from the farms, of course, continues into the global supply chain through trade. And of the 64 countries that produce cotton worldwide, 57 countries export cotton. And according to the recent statistics from the USDA, 57 countries import cotton. Now, these aren't the same countries as the exporters, to be sure. But one of the things that we notice right away about the world global supply chain for cotton, it's extremely global. It involves lots of countries and lots of worldwide trading of cotton. And this is really critical in understanding, again, the global supply chain for cotton, and a point that we make with companies in understanding that supply chain. Cotton is truly a globally traded commodity. And this, as many of you know, has implications for everything from pricing to the complexity of regulations and imports around the world. When we think about the United States in this trading in the global supply chain, the U.S. exports to 30 countries, and that's what we did last year in the crop year. You can see many of the major locations for U.S. cotton coming up on the screen now. We expect that the U.S. will continue to be a large exporter of cotton into the world market this crop year. Now, even though the cotton begins at the farm and it's traded around the world, as we think about the cotton supply chain, it's important to note that there are 93 different countries that transform cotton into textile and non-textile products. So this transformation, of course, is manufacturing. So these different countries have different manufacturing processes for cotton. Most of this cotton, about 80% or so, is going to end up in apparel. So that is the leading end use for cotton fiber, followed by home textile products like sheets, towels, pillowcases. That's about 10 to 15% of the manufacturing for cotton fiber. And that's followed by a category that we call nonwovens. Nonwovens are these non-textile products, not traditional textile products, but things like diapers, disposable wipes, feminine hygiene products. All of these types of products use cotton and use fiber. And in fact, this category of fiber use products is among the fastest growing of all the end uses for cotton. So it's a terrific category. One of the things that you can see in this map too is the amount of cotton consumption, and these numbers are in millions of bales around the world among some of the leading manufacturers. And one of the things that you can see quite clearly is that China at 38 million bales of milk consumption and India at 25.5 million bales of milk consumption. These two countries alone account for over half the world's textile milk consumption of cotton. So 6 countries account for 80% of the world's production. 2 countries account for over half of the milk consumption or the manufacturing of cotton fiber into textile products. So that's a little bit of background on some of the current numbers and the flow of cotton from production to trading around the world global supply chain. What I'd like to do now is build on that in understanding and talk about some current issues that are in the global supply chain for cotton. And the first is digital design, which is a transformative technology. I also want to speak to the role of innovation and what we're seeing in the importance of innovation for cotton, particularly as it competes with synthetic fibers. A third issue of tremendous importance to the global supply chain is traceability, and we'll spend a few minutes talking about that. And then finally, the issue of circularity, or what can be done with cotton beyond its initial use in apparel or home textiles or other products. One of the things that Cotton Incorporated does is it helps the industry, manufacturers, retailers, brands, understand every aspect of cotton. And we do this through an extensive and detailed website called cottonworks.com. I encourage everybody on the call to take a look at that website, and I know the Cotton Board will provide you a link to that website if you're interested. But if you visit that website, you'll see a lot of different topics, and some of those appear on the screen here. Topics like Fabricast, our library of fabric ideas for cotton, traceability, webinars, workshops, technical assistance for the industry, technologies, and important topics like trend forecasting. But one of the topics that we also feature is digital product creation. And this is a key issue in the supply chain. And the Cotton Board has, through the Cotton and Coffee program, featured this topic in the past. Our expert at Cotton Incorporated, Catherine Absher, has spoken in this program, and I encourage you, again, to check out the link that'll be provided to you after this session if you're interested in learning more about digital design. But here's what digital design is. It's a transformative technology. It's much like GPS has transformed ag production and the way farmers grow their crops and the way they apply crop aids and manage their fields. GPS technology has transformed production. Digital design is doing the same thing in sourcing. So sourcing is the process of designing clothing or textile products and then figuring out who's going to manufacture those products and then putting in place supply chains. So what digital design has done is it has brought software into the equation. It allows retailers, brands, manufacturers to digitally design apparel and textile products. What this means is shorter lead times. Designers can exchange ideas much, much faster than they used to when they were just exchanging physical samples of or mock-ups of apparel products. What this also means is that there are environmental benefits, such as less waste and the creation of physical samples, because now designers and customers can exchange digital files and digital ideas. And what this means for designers is just boundless creativity. It means that companies and their designers can come up with faster designs and more ideas and more creative options for cotton. And what Cotton Incorporated has done in this area of digital design is provide manufacturers, brands, and retailers in global supply chains ideas to work with cotton digital files. And we now offer over 300 digital fabric files. But I say this all because this is a transformative technology that's making global supply chains for cotton work faster. And cotton needs this technology to compete with synthetics. We need to push cotton ideas through digital design software to help companies be aware of the options that they can use with cotton as they continue to adopt this type of design technology and take advantage of all of these types of things for their cotton supply chains. We will continue to work in this area with this type of technology and help the industry as it continues to adopt this type of technology. But this is definitely changing cotton supply chains around the world, and Cotton Incorporated has been a leader in this area. When we think about cotton and cotton's competition, from the standpoint of global supply chains, cotton's competition is not really other cotton producing countries. Cotton's competition in the world market is synthetic fiber, chiefly polyester, nylon, and I would also put rayon fibers in that category. And one of the things that's critical in the supply chain is that cotton offer innovation. And innovation is critical for brands and retailers and manufacturers because innovation can add value to their products. And if we have cotton technologies, then we're able to help brands and retailers, manufacturers develop new types of products, new performance features, and this allows them to bring something different to the market. And this is a great way for them to expand their profitability and to increase sales and connect with their consumers. This also gives cotton a very direct means of competing with the synthetic fibers that are in the marketplace. And again, this is our primary mission at Cotton Incorporated, to build demand for cotton and to compete with these synthetic fibers. But here's a couple other things that you may not be aware of as we talk about these types of performance technologies and working with global supply chains. The first is you see many different technologies listed on the screen here, and these are all examples that you can find in cottonworks.com. Well, one of the things that we do at Cotton Incorporated is we allow brands and retailers to license these technologies. And brands or retailers are free to call these technologies anything they want. They can market it under different names. They don't have to use Cotton Incorporated's name. What that means is that brands and retailers can use the same technology, but make it look different in the marketplace and customize it to their own brand or marketing strategy. What it means for cotton is that we can get a broad adoption of these types of technologies under many different names in the retail space. Another thing that I want everybody to be aware of when we talk about these technologies and how we work with the global supply chains, for each adoption of these technologies, each Cotton Incorporated technology, Cotton Incorporated enters into a contract with a brand, retailer, or manufacturer. So if these companies adopt a Cotton Incorporated technology, they have a contractual obligation to use a specified minimum amount of cotton. So these types of technologies very directly allow us to displace and compete with synthetic fibers in the marketplace. They're one of the strongest, most impactful things we can do to advance the use of cotton worldwide in the global supply chains. I also want to make a point here because I get this question quite often. Are these technologies limited only to the use of US cotton? And the answer is no. And the reason for that is quite strategic. It goes back again to the fundamental point In global supply chains, cotton competes with synthetic fibers and rayon. And we have to recognize that cotton comes from many different countries. So the first order of we have to win the fight against synthetic fibers. And these technologies allow us to compete directly with synthetic fibers and license companies to guarantee the use of cotton in the product. Now, of course, we would like to see US cotton, and we push that wherever possible. But these technologies offer us the ability to get cotton in place against synthetic fibers. Another thing that's very important to understand is that because we work in a global supply chain and cotton is this globally produced and traded commodity, it's absolutely critical that we have networks of global manufacturers. And these networks are licensed companies that are evaluated by experts in Cotton Incorporated's research center in Cary, North Carolina. And our experts evaluate these manufacturers' ability to use and manufacture our cotton technologies. But what this means for the global supply chain is that retailers or brands anywhere in the world have a ready-made list of Cotton Incorporated technology suppliers from major regions around the world. So imagine if you saw something for your farm or your business and you wanted to find a supplier. If you had a ready-made list of suppliers you could go to, that means that you're more likely to use that product or that service. Well, that's what we do with the global supply chain. We have hundreds of companies involved in supplying a multitude of these different Cotton Incorporated technologies. We are able to provide that ready-made list of suppliers and connect these manufacturers to global retailers and brands to get these technologies in place and increase cotton's use in the marketplace. A third topic in the global supply chains that's tremendously important is traceability. And here you can see a page from our cottonworks.com traceability website. And what's important with traceability is the idea that downstream users of cotton, manufacturers, retailers, brands, over many years have increasingly tried to understand and want to know how their products are produced, where the ingredients come from, what chemicals might be used in manufacturing, what labor is involved in the process. And this goes not just to the apparel or the fabric or the yarn, but even all the way back to cotton. And remember, cotton is that first ingredient in the global supply chain. So traceability is becoming extremely important. This issue is not going away. What cotton needs to do is be in a position to help retailers, brands, and other organizations understand the story about cotton so that they have the information necessary to make good, intelligent choices about using cotton. What we do find, though, in the industry is that many companies don't have even some of the basic understanding about cotton. So through websites like cottonworks.com, the efforts of our sustainability divisions, research divisions, agriculture, environmental research divisions at Cotton Incorporated, and our global marketing groups, we put all of this information out there to help the industry understand basic information about cotton, where it comes from, how it's traded, what are the patterns for doing that. We find that there's a lot of interest in what to many of us might seem basic, but for a lot of companies, they don't understand the flow of cotton worldwide. So this is one of the first steps in helping companies understand traceability. Another very important step, though, is helping companies, especially retailers and brands and manufacturers, understand some of the technologies that are in place. As the interest in traceability has grown around the world, so too have the number of companies that are offering software or technology programs to help users in the supply chain trace or track cotton. Now, while Cotton Incorporated currently does not endorse any of these technologies, we do help retailers, brands, and others understand the questions they should ask should they be trying to evaluate these types of technologies. So if you're interested in this, again, I would encourage you to go to the traceability section on the cottonworks.com website. We will be updating some of our latest research about traceability technologies and providing a revised guidance document to the industry that should be available in November. We talk about the global supply chain for cotton. We talk about traceability. And when we think about cotton, the discussion worldwide about traceability has really focused on this kind of supply chain. Where does cotton come from? And sometimes people are asking which field or which farm or which region, certainly which country, and how is that supplied to a textile mill? And then how does that go into a product? And there are regulations that are being discussed and evolving around the world, both in the US and Europe and many other countries. And these regulations are raising the question of what is the appropriate level of focus when it comes to traceability? What level of information should the cotton industry be required to provide? Or should cotton farmers or cotton merchants or traders be required to provide? Should that traceability look like this graphic that you see on the slide? Should it go back to the country? Should it identify regions, perhaps within a country, or even farm or field level information? One of the most interesting topics of discussion taking place right now is how the cotton industry should respond to some of this legislation. And Cotton Incorporated, while not involved in lobbying or policymaking, is paying attention to these discussions and listening in and offering technical advice to help companies and organizations understand this issue. But one of the most interesting topics currently being debated is whether or not, as cotton competes with synthetic fibers, whether or not synthetic fibers should also be required to provide traceability information comparable to what cotton is being asked to provide. And you can see in the graphic here that textile synthetic fibers come from factories, and they're provided to textile mills and they go into products. Well, on the surface, that looks like a pretty easy traceability story. And if you can identify where the factory is that produced this synthetic fiber, then that's the traceability story, and that seems to be all that's necessary. But not so. The discussion taking place in global circles and at global meetings around traceability is also saying that if cotton farmers are going to be required perhaps to provide information back to the country or the region, or even more granular than that, then perhaps synthetic fibers should also be held to account. And they should be required to provide information about the country of origin for the materials that go into the factory, or the region, or perhaps even the oil field. If farmers are going to be required to be traceable with their cotton fibers to specific regions or farms, then wouldn't it be appropriate for synthetic fibers to also have that same level of visibility and traceability? So I say this because this is one of the issues that many organizations are arguing for as they defend cotton and want to work with downstream retailers and brands and regulatory agencies on the issue of traceability. But they also want to ensure that cotton is held to a level playing field when it comes to cotton versus synthetic fibers. So this is an interesting debate that we're watching closely. The traceability issue, though, presents some real challenges in cotton global supply chains. And the first thing to understand is right at the point of collection for many countries around the world, cotton is commingled. It's mixed right at the point of collection from different farms during the harvest period. So immediately when you mix cotton, if that's on the back of a truck or a collection vehicle, the cotton identity is lost. You don't know the farmer, you don't know the farm. Cotton in many countries is also commingled or mixed in ginning. So again, the identity of cotton can be lost. And certainly when we get into manufacturing, because cotton is a natural fiber, cotton is blended when bales of cotton are put in what's called a laydown. And the laydown is just the physical layout of the different bales as they begin the yarn manufacturing process. But blending bales is a great way for manufacturers to overcome the variation in the natural fibers of cotton. And it's a technique that good manufacturers worldwide use. But blending moves in the opposite direction of traceability. And certainly blending can be done in sliver stages and yarn stages, mixing yarns or mixing sliver. Sliver is what you see in this picture here. And this picture comes from Cotton Incorporated's research center in Cary, North Carolina. The sliver is really the first formation of cotton in a way that begins to look like a yarn. And the blending of cotton, even with these slivers or even in these early stages, is again done because cotton is a natural fiber with variations, and manufacturers need to blend those variations so that they get a consistent yarn product. Many retailers and brands don't really understand the blending that takes place in manufacturing. And blending works in the opposite direction of traceability. So this type of blending continues to be a challenge with global cotton supply chains. And we have to always remember, and this is a key lesson for a lot of brands and retailers, that textile mills don't just place orders for tons or bales of cotton. They don't just say, I need another 200 bales of cotton. They buy cotton based on fiber qualities. And those fiber qualities are blended then and managed to produce consistent yarns. That fiber quality information in the blending process is absolutely critical for cotton as it competes with synthetic fibers in manufacturing. But all of this, again, tends to move in the opposite direction of traceability. So one of the US cotton advantages that's quite clear and continues to be strong in global cotton supply chains is the fact that every US bale of cotton is classed. And we appreciate that US cotton farmers pay for that, and the USDA system for doing that is tremendously important. So while you may be growing cotton for these types of qualities, and it may seem difficult and complex sometimes to be graded along these things, this is truly an advantage for US cotton. And we educate companies around the world and throughout the global cotton supply chains to look for these types of qualities and to manage these qualities so that cotton can better compete with synthetics. A fourth issue that I want to mention in the global cotton supply chain is the issue of recycling and traceability and circularity. And this is really the concept of how can we get the most out of products that we're using as a society before we dispose of those products? How can we use them and reuse them, recycle them, repurpose them? So many brands and retailers are working diligently to think about the products they're developing, like apparel or home textile products. And they're asking questions of their manufacturers, their suppliers, and even their raw material suppliers like cotton or synthetic fibers. How can these fibers and these fabrics and products be reused or repurposed to reduce waste? So at Cotton Incorporated, we like to refer to this visual here. And you see very clearly that cotton in the bottom of this illustration is grown from the earth. Cotton can be used in a variety of products, again, apparel, home textiles, nonwovens, and cotton can be reused. Excuse me. And cotton can be recycled. And ultimately, all cotton can end up going back to the earth. And this is the true circularity story for cotton. So, with growing interest in recycling and circularity, cotton really has a great story to tell. But one of the things that's interesting is that recycling of cotton, reusing it in apparel or in other uses, actually presents a real challenge and difficulty for traceability. So while in global supply chains, the effort is to be more traceable and understand the origin of cottons, recycling cotton actually obscures, makes it more difficult to understand or identify the origin of cotton production or where that original cotton fiber came from. There's a lot of work being done by Cotton Incorporated and many industry companies to look at recycling of cotton textiles. And I want to take a moment and kind of explain our approach at Cotton Incorporated to this issue. There's a lot of discussion around recycling. There are a lot of environmental regulations in Europe and other places that are encouraging recycling of textiles. And when it comes to using recycled cotton in textiles, there are a few things that need to be understood. The first thing is that cotton can be used in what we call textile to textile recycling, meaning you can take a shirt or a pair of pants and recycle it and create a shirt or a pair of pants. But the truth is, those opportunities are actually quite limited. And the best way to understand that is to think of a step ladder. And if at the top of the ladder we have very fine yarns or fine fabrics like a dress shirt, the process of recycling means you take that dress shirt and you chop it up, you break it up. And when you do that, you actually take cotton fibers in that shirt and you make them shorter, and you're stressing them and you make them weaker. Shorter and weaker fibers don't make stronger yarns, they make weaker yarns and weaker fabrics. So the process of recycling cotton textiles actually is one where you don't go up the ladder, you don't make a finer product, you actually recycle toward coarser yarns where fiber qualities are a little less important, or even into products like nonwovens, like diapers or disposable wipes made of cotton, or insulation. Cotton Incorporated has a program, Blue Jeans Go Green. Great example of recycling cotton from textiles into non-textile uses. A very, very good environmental and circularity solution, but one where cotton fiber is appropriately targeted toward the product that it can be best used for. So I want to point this out because this laddering down process is the way we think about recycling cotton. And I know many cotton farmers may be saying, well, we have concerns about recycling because isn't that competing with virgin fiber use and cotton production? And the answer, I think, is no. We in the cotton industry have to address the issue of recycling, but perhaps the best uses for cotton are actually in this laddering down model. And when cotton can be used as it is today in 80% textiles, but we ladder down to these other uses, then cotton farmers win because we can market cotton as a reusable, recyclable fiber, which the industry wants to see and regulators want to understand that cotton can do that. But we also see cotton being directed to these other types of uses that don't necessarily compete with new cotton production, new fiber production, because of this reality of the points you see on the right here about the degradation of fiber quality. So this is an issue that is getting a lot of interest, recycling, but we don't see this as something competing with virgin fiber production. We see it as actually marketing to one of the strengths of cotton as a natural fiber, and then orienting the industry toward the best use of cotton fiber based on the quality of that fiber, the best use in terms of final end product. The last point I want to make about the cotton supply chain is that at Cotton Incorporated and at the Cotton Board, there are extensive efforts to help educate downstream users in the cotton supply chain, particularly retailers and brands. We all know how cotton is produced, but many companies don't. And many companies that are marketing cotton products or developing them don't have that fundamental understanding, that basic understanding of where cotton comes from and what are the efforts being undertaken by farmers and researchers and professional organizations to ensure responsible production of cotton. And these pictures are from an event that was held last week. This is an event that is sponsored by the Importer Support Program of the Cotton Board. And those are the retailers and brands on the Cotton Board who are strong supporters in trying to help the retailer and brand community understand what U.S. cotton farmers are doing. So these farm tours are an effort where we bring 60 to 70 retailers and brands to cotton farms. We do this in the Memphis and Arkansas area. And along with Cotton Board staff, we educate these brands and retailers, and they're allowed to and encouraged to meet directly with farmers and researchers. And you can see some pictures of that here. The visitors, the retailers and brands also go to the cotton farms, but they go to the gins as well. They see the whole ginning process, and you can see pictures of that here. On the right side of the screen, you can see gin byproduct, or what we commonly call gin trash. But to brands and retailers, it's not gin trash, it's recycling. So when we talk about concepts like recycling in the global supply chain for cotton, even something like a pile of gin trash is tremendously important for brands and retailers to understand that farmers aren't throwing that away. They're using that, they're recycling that. There is no waste with cotton. And that's a great part of the environmental and circularity and recycling story for cotton that we can tell. Excuse me. In addition to visiting the farm, the retailers and brands also get to meet with researchers. And this is a picture here at the Research Center in Marianna, Arkansas. Dr. Tina Teague from Arkansas State University is sharing a presentation with all our guests about the extension research and the role of research agents and consultants that support the U.S. cotton industry and the basic research being done into soil and air and water. And the amount of research, including the work that's going on at over 400 projects sponsored by Cotton Incorporated's Agriculture and Environmental Research Division. And this type of information, absolutely essential to share and build confidence among retailers and brands in what is behind U.S. cotton. And then finally, tremendously important, the cooperation and expertise at the U.S. Department of Agriculture, the Ag Marketing Service office and headquarters in Memphis. The team of experts there are just outstanding. And they present and share information about the classing operation. And almost to a person, the comment we get from retailers and brands is that they didn't know U.S. cotton was so scientific, or that all of this work goes into supporting the responsible cotton in the U.S. cotton supply chain. So those are some of the current issues and topics in the supply chain. I thank you for your attention this morning and the opportunity to give you an update on what's going on in the global cotton supply chain.